Hillingdon Underground Station, West London. September 24th, 2019, 3:30 in the afternoon. On the eastbound platform, two young men stand side by side, waiting for the train. One of them is wearing an Arsenal shirt. He has just turned 22 days ago. He and his friend are heading to the Emirates Stadium to watch a football match, a birthday present he bought for himself. On the opposite platform, two other men are standing. One of them, a white male in a baseball cap, stares across the tracks at the young man in the Arsenal shirt. He does not like the way he thinks he is being looked at. He turns to his friend, and together they walk up the stairs, cross the bridge, and come down onto the eastbound platform. They are now standing face to face with two strangers they have never met before. What happens next takes exactly 34 seconds. The man in the Arsenal shirt will never leave this platform alive. And the man in the baseball cap, he has done this before. Tashan Daniel was 20 years old and already knew exactly who he wanted to be.
Years ago, and I just wanted to say thank you very much for teaching me, getting me onto the next step.
He was a sprinter, a photographer, a devoted Arsenal fan, and the kind of son who made everyone around him proud without ever trying too hard. His mother, Celia, described him in the simplest terms.
Sean was the son that I believe every parent will want to have.
Family meant everything to the Daniels. Shandy and Celia raised Tashan and his younger sister Oceana in Hillingdon, West London, in a home built on closeness, routine, and love. Tashan was the firstborn, the one who set the standard. He had manners. He looked after his cousins. He was the person everyone called when they needed help, and the last person anyone expected to say no.
Tashan was just a kind soul. He was thoughtful, he was caring, and he wanted the best for everyone.
From a young age, Tashan fell in love with athletics. He trained up to 4 times a week at Hillingdon Athletic Club, specializing in the 200 meters, 400 meters, and long jump. His coach, Joshua Swarry, noticed something rare in him from the very beginning.
I soon noticed that Tashan had an ability that not many people have. He was very explosive, very elastic type of athlete, which is necessary for sprinting. This kid had the ability to go very far in the sport, and he wanted to go as far as the Olympic Games, and that was definitely something that we was heading towards.
The Olympics were not just a dream. They were a plan. His father remembered how seriously Tashan approached every single training session, every race, every personal record he chased. But Tashan was far more than an athlete. He was the person who walked his grandfather to appointments, stayed up late helping his father with the computer because Chandy was, by his own admission, absolutely useless with technology and never hesitated to rearrange his own plans if his family needed him. His best friend Leon had known him since they were 5 years old, growing up together through football teams and school corridors.
Tashan had a real passion for athletics. It was 200 meters, 400 meters, and long jump. His passion really came when he excelled at 200 meters. He was absolutely demolishing his time and also breaking records within the borough and Middlesex.
Tashan also had a creative side. He worked as a photographer and ran his own social media, posting videos with the same infectious energy he brought to the track. He danced at every family gathering, he made friends effortlessly, and he carried himself with a warmth that people remembered long after he left the room. His younger sister, Oceana, was 15 at the time. The bond between them was something she still struggles to describe.
Me and Tashan had a bond that I can't really describe. We got on like best friends. There would obviously be times where we didn't get along, but most of the time that we spent was always laughing.
2 days before September 24th, Tashan turned 20. He celebrated with both friends and family, dancing, laughing, making everyone feel like they belonged. It was the last birthday he would ever have. The morning of September 24th, 2019 was a Tuesday. Oceana was getting ready for school. She always said goodbye to her brother in the mornings. It was their small ritual. But that day, Tashan was exhausted from training the night before.
That day, he was very tired because he had training the day before, so he stayed and had a lie-in. Then I left for school without saying a proper goodbye.
She would carry that sentence for the rest of her life. That afternoon, Tashan took his grandfather to a daycare center for a taster session. He rearranged his own schedule to make sure his grandfather got there because he knew how important it was to the family. Then he stopped by his mother's workplace to have lunch with her, picked his grandfather back up, and dropped him home. When he returned, he put on his Arsenal shirt. He had bought himself a ticket to watch Arsenal play Nottingham Forest at the Emirates Stadium that evening, a birthday present to himself. His friend Trayon Campbell arrived at the house. Shandy was sitting at the computer, struggling with something technical, and asked Tashan for help. But Tashan was already running late. He was in a rush and could not stop.
Just ruffled my head, gave me a kiss like he always did. They said, "Dad, I'll sort it out tomorrow." And off they went. They walked down to the train station.
It was 3:30 in the afternoon. Tashan Daniel and Trayon Campbell walked together toward Hillingdon Underground station, heading east to the Emirates. Tashan was wearing his Arsenal shirt, carrying nothing but a ticket, and a good mood. He did not know that on the opposite platform, two men were already waiting, and from the moment he stepped onto that westbound platform, he had been looking for trouble. What started on the opposite platform took less than a minute to destroy everything. CCTV footage showed the confrontation beginning across the tracks. Lanning, the white male in the baseball cap, spotted Tashan and Trayon on the eastbound platform and decided they were looking at him the wrong way. He shouted across the rails. Tashan, calm and unbothered, told him to be quiet and get on his train. That response was all it took. Lanning turned to Camille, and together they walked up the stairs, crossed the bridge, and descended onto the eastbound platform where Tashan and Trayon were standing.
Two young men together at a train station, and at least one of them is looking for trouble. And two young men on the other side of the platform were the unfortunate victims. They were chosen completely at random.
The moment they reached the platform, violence erupted. Camille went straight for Trayon and Campbell. While the two of them fought, Lanning pulled out a 5.5-inch German-made aviator knife, a weapon designed for NATO military pilots to cut through laminated glass and seatbelts. He thrust it once into Tashan's chest. The blade pierced his heart and punctured his lung.
Tashan received a single stab wound that punctured his chest, punctured his heart, and into the lung, which was the fatal and only injury that Tashan received.
On the moving train, their view obscured, fragmented, gone in a flash. Trayon dropped to his knees beside his friend, begging him to hold on. Lanning and Camille turned and ran. Two separate witnesses saw Lanning as he sprinted out of the station. He was smiling.
Along with the CCTV of the location that showed both suspects running out of the station, stopping briefly and appearing to smile only moments after taking Tashan's life.
Back in Hillingdon, the Daniel family's ordinary Tuesday afternoon was about to end. Oceana had just finished school and was sitting downstairs with her father when Chandy's phone rang. It was the father of Tashan's friend. He did not say much. Chandy grabbed his keys. Oceana jumped in the car. As they drove, Chandy called Celia at work. Nobody had any details, just that something had happened at Hillingdon Station. Chandy refused to believe it could be Tashan. There was no way. His son had never been in trouble. His son would walk away from a fight.
Me and Oceana just jumped in the car to drive down to the station. I rang Celia.
Got a feeling that something bad had happened driving from work to the station.
He told Oceana to stay in the car and ran toward the station entrance. Police officers blocked his path. He told them he thought it was his son. They let him through. He ran down the stairs to the platform and saw Tashan lying on the ground, surrounded by paramedics and blood.
I just couldn't understand what was going on. And I didn't even notice the wounds or anything. I was just staring at Tashan's face, stroking him, wondering why he wasn't responding.
Celia arrived minutes later. Chandy was already on the platform, holding their son. Oceana stood at the top of the stairs looking down. A paramedic from the air ambulance told Chandi that they had been working on Tashan for 20 minutes. They had tried everything. His heart had stopped. They were going to stop working on him. Celia reached Tashan's side and asked if she could hold his hand. They told her just for a minute. He had just been pronounced dead.
And I asked, can I hold his hand, please? And they said just for a minute, because he had just been pronounced. I collapsed on the floor.
I just remember my dad screaming, saying that I didn't make it. The emotions that I was feeling was just numbness, really. I couldn't comprehend it. I couldn't take it in.
Three members of the Daniel family had arrived at Hillingdon Station within minutes of each other. Each of them saw something no parent, no sibling should ever have to witness. And while they held each other in a small ticket office room, unable to speak, unable to process what had just happened, 500 meters away, the two men who killed their son were hiding a knife under a pile of rocks and stealing floral pajamas from a washing line. The police ushered the Daniel family into a small staff ticket office at Hillingdon Station. Nobody knew what to do. Nobody could process what had just happened. Chandi, Celia, and Oceana sat together in shock, surrounded by tears and silence and the kind of emptiness that no amount of words could fill.
None of us knew what to do, really. It was just, lots of tears, hugs and things, but we were all in a state of shock. We were just, still couldn't understand, couldn't believe it. Tashan would have been the last person that should have happened to. It just wouldn't sink in, just couldn't process it, really.
That evening, Leon Hack arrived at the Daniel family home. He had been meant to go to the Arsenal match with Tashan, but could not get the time off work. When his mother mentioned a stabbing at Hillingdon Station, he tried calling Tashan 5 times. No reply. Treo. For the next 10 days, the Daniel family lived in a kind of suspended nightmare. All 3 of them stopped sleeping in their own beds. Instead, they moved into Tashan's bedroom, lying on his sheets, breathing in whatever was left of him, waiting for a door to open that would never open again.
Chandi, Oshie, and myself were not sleeping at all. We've actually was sleeping in Tashan's bedroom. Thinking maybe he's gonna come home. But we know he wasn't coming back. 3 of us were completely emptied. Had no more tears left.
Oceana tried to go back to school. She wanted something, anything, to feel normal again. But nothing was normal. Her brother was on the news. Her brother was a statistic. Her brother was a name in a headline about knife crime, and she could not make that reality fit inside her 15-year-old mind.
It just felt weird, really, that my brother was on the news as a victim of knife crime, something that I never, ever in my life would have thought happened.
Meanwhile, DCI Sam Blackburn and his team at British Transport Police were working around the clock. Initially, Blackburn considered multiple hypotheses: gang-related, football-related, a targeted attack. But as investigators dug into Tashan's background, every single theory collapsed. Tashan had no criminal record, no connection to gangs, no enemies. He was simply a young man standing on a platform waiting for a train.
We started researching Tashan and his friend. These were really good kids. There was nothing in relation to them in the police. It became very apparent very, very quickly that Tashan didn't know the suspects. And so it was really just a stranger attack. It seemed to be completely and utterly unprovoked.
The breakthrough came 3 days after the murder. Forensic analysis of a baseball cap recovered from the discarded clothing at Oriole Drive returned a DNA match: Alex Lanning. When Blackburn pulled his file, what he found made the case even more chilling. Lanning had been convicted in 2016 for stabbing a man 11 times during a drug deal in Brighton. He was sentenced to 4 years, served only 2, and was released on license. He was still under that license when he killed Tashan Daniel. The weapon recovered near the scene told its own story. It was a German-made aviator knife, built for NATO military pilots. Blackburn had no illusions about what carrying that weapon meant.
It wasn't a kitchen knife taken from a block at a home. This was an aviator knife produced in Germany. It was a horrific knife. One that if you were to stab somebody with that knife, there's really only one consequence which is going to happen from that. And that, unfortunately, is the death of another human being.
4 hours after Lanning's name came through, intelligence linked a nickname, Jojo, to the second suspect. Further research matched the nickname to a custody image, Jonathan Camille, a 19-year-old from Fulham with known ties to County Line's drug supply. The CCTV confirmed it. Camille was the black male on the platform. Now Blackburn had 2 names, but both men had vanished. While the investigation pressed forward, Chandi's fear had shifted. He was no longer just grieving. He was terrified, not for himself, but for Oceana. The killers were still out there, and they lived close to home. 10 days passed. 10 days of sleeping in a dead son's bedroom. 10 days of Oceana walking to school past the station where her brother was murdered. 10 days of Celia checking the locks and watching the news and waiting for a phone call.
I don't think my heart actually worked on those 10 days. It was really, really nerve-wracking because I didn't want my son, Tashan, killers to be on the run.
Then, on the morning of October 3rd, a phone activated in central London. It belonged to Jonathan Camille. Blackburn's surveillance team locked onto the signal and followed Camille through the city, along Oxford Street, through the crowds, until he walked straight to the one person Blackburn had been waiting for, Alex Lanning. Blackburn had spent 10 days building toward this moment. His strategy from the beginning was to hold back on arresting Camille, because Camille would lead him to Lanning. It was a gamble. If he arrested Camille too early, Lanning would go deeper underground, further off the radar, possibly gone for good.
Well, I've got a choice to make. Arrest Jonathan Camille, and then potentially Alex Lanning goes further and further away, more under the radar. But I felt that we were getting closer and closer to Alex Lanning with that link to Jonathan Camille. And I knew that I had to get Alex Lanning in custody.
The surveillance team tracked Camille through central London. He moved along Oxford Street, weaving through shoppers and commuters, completely unaware that officers were watching his every step. Then he turned off the main road, and within minutes he met with Alex Lanning in the Cheapside area of the city. The arrest teams moved in. On October the 4th, 2019, 10 days after Tashan Daniel was killed on a train platform, both Alex Lanning and Jonathan Camille were taken into custody simultaneously. The first call Blackburn made was to the Daniel family.
A great sense of relief when we were able to inform the family that we'd kept good on our promise. We would arrest the individuals involved in killing Tashan. They'd supported me through those 10 days of that investigation, or when I made that promise, and they'd kept faith.
For Celia, the arrest did not bring Tashan back. Nothing ever would. But it gave her something she'd been desperate for, the smallest foothold of justice to begin laying her son to rest properly.
Knowing that they caught them, some form of justice could be served in order to put my son to rest properly.
And the Daniel family was about to walk into the most famous court in England. The trial took place at the Old Bailey, the most famous criminal court in England. It lasted 4 weeks. DCI Blackburn, who had spent years in law enforcement, admitted even he felt nervous walking into that building. Alex Lanning admitted he had stabbed Tashan but claimed it was an accident, that Tashan had fallen onto the knife. His defense shifted and changed throughout the trial, but he always denied murder. The CCTV footage told a different story. So did the witnesses. So did the weapon. For the Daniel family, sitting in that courtroom meant facing the 2 men who had taken their son. Celia remembered the first moment she saw them.
When we first set eyes on the 2 lads, they had no remorse whatsoever. No remorse. And that was painful.
On August the 6th, 2020, the jury returned its verdicts. Alex Lanning was found guilty of murder. Jonathan Camille was cleared of murder but convicted of manslaughter. 2 weeks later, the judge handed down the sentences. Lanning received life imprisonment with a minimum term of 25 years. Camille was sentenced to 6.5 years. Oceana, 15 years old, stood in the courtroom and read her victim impact statement aloud. She looked at the two men who killed her brother and said what the rest of her family could not. In the weeks after the trial, the community of Hillingdon came together to honor Tashan in the only way that felt right, with music, color, and joy. The family held a memorial celebration that brought the entire borough to a standstill. Nearly 1,000 people attended. The dress code was fresh, fly, and funky because that was who Tashan was. Everyone wore trainers because Tashan loved his trainers. A gospel choir sang. A live band played. It was not a funeral. It was a celebration of a life that had touched more people than his family ever realized. Shandy stood there watching 1,000 faces. Friends, teammates, neighbors, strangers, all gathered for his son. And in that moment, through all the grief and all the loss, something else broke through.
I know that we raised a fine young man, and to hear the amazing words that I've said about him fills my heart with joy.
In the years since, the Daniel family has become a voice in the fight against knife crime across the United Kingdom. They speak at schools, attend rallies, and work to ensure that no other family has to experience what they went through on that platform. Tashan's name is no longer just a headline. It is a symbol of everything that was lost and everything worth protecting. And perhaps the best way to remember Tashan Daniel is in his own words, recorded long before that September afternoon when the future still belonged to him.